significant correlation between company stock performance and individual employee happiness, where somebody feels left out, excluded. It is almost impossible to perform at their best. My brain will be constantly asking, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? You can't perform under those circumstances. Where there was manager support on wellbeing, even a little bit, that number dropped from 255 to 55. Why we feel like we feel, what we can do about it, and where that crosses over with work. Salespeople are in sales because they're already good at sales. My job as their manager is to make sure that they're in the right position to be the good at salesperson that they already are. You're often waiting for people to become sick before helping them.
Is it better for our mental health or worse to work remotely?
There was some data.
My purpose is to help professionals connect with themselves and with others. Therefore, by the end of this episode, I would love to know, do you feel more connected?
Tom, I'm very excited and grateful to have you on the Core Impact podcast. This is how I feel. How do you feel?
So how do I feel today? Do you know that it's a very personal and complex answer? There are so many things that go into the cooking pot of my feelings today. From childhood through to the food I eat, to how I'm treated. You know, it's a very moving and dynamic question. You know, you maybe you think that's an easy question to start with, but I think this is important. Because when people come to work and they say, oh, I'm feeling okay, or I'm feeling average, I'm feeling down, there are so many things in that, and we need to get curious as to why people feel why they do it, and you know what makes their feeling score go up, what makes it go down, and try and understand that in the context of work. So today, I feel really well emotionally, and I've got spare energy today. So I'm hitting the ground running today. I've been on my rowing machine. I've had a nice breakfast, and I'm ready to go. But I'm often not like that. In the past week, I will have felt, anxious, tired, and angry, and all these things. But right now, Omar, I'm feeling all right. How about you? How are you doing?
Great, Tom. As I said, I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to talk about. And I'm curious. This is my mind also curious, and my let's say my body, my emotions. I feel excited, of course. And there is something I would like to ask you, Tom. How important it is, especially for men, to talk about our feelings, especially when you talk about workplace, right? Because usually it's this image of us being professional, and not talk about emotions.
Men have been told for thousands of generations to be tough and not to feel. And when we do that for thousands of generations, we begin to eliminate that part of our thinking. But our body knows that we are experiencing these things. And if we don't articulate them, if we don't let them out, if we don't share them, if we don't understand them, and they're still there, they will do harm because we suppress them and we push them back into the body. And that's where we experience, the tension or the cortisol, the stress hormone, one of the hormones linked with stress, and adrenaline. And these are important hormones, but they can do damage if they are stuck inside us. So we are in a time where men are being asked to express themselves about their mental health, and it's hard for many. And we are in a place of in workspaces, we're being asked more to consider aspects around inclusion and mental health and well-being. We are also in quite a scary world where sometimes it is not safe to talk about our vulnerabilities. So we've got lots of different forces at work.
Now, you made me curious. Do you see a link between inclusion and mental health?
Oh, yes. And I think that
How is it?
any team, the best performing teams are ones where you have a sense of psychological safety. And that is based on people being able to speak up when something is not right, but also being accountable for their actions too. It's not a place of just softness. It includes performance. That performance can only come in a team where, well, you've probably seen this. If you can think about a sports team or a work team where somebody feels left out, excluded, bullied, harassed, victimized, not understood, it is almost impossible for that individual to perform at their best. And there's physiological reasons for that. Because if I'm chronically stressed or lonely or excluded or not included, then my brain will be constantly asking you the question, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? Where's my tribe? Where's my team? Is this okay? Is this allowed? You know, and that you can't perform under those circumstances. We require this whole brain activity called flow. Opposite of stress. Stress is like a kind of almost like moving back into our brainstem and the amygdala, and the activity in the amygdala that fires up the stress response. But flow goes the other way, lights everything up, a whole brain experience. That's where time flies. We're at our best and we can really perform. So we can talk about inclusion in terms of mental health, but we could also talk about inclusion in terms of diversity or menopause or neurodiversity. And when I feel included and part of the tribe, part of the pack, part of the team, I'm much more likely to be able to do the best with my skills.
Tom, since also you mentioned now the flow.
Yeah.
Do you have, from your experience, like 1 to 3 top tips? How can I still stay in flow? How much does it affect my mental health also, to be aware of the state?
Yeah. So being in flow is a very positive state to be. And the brain is creative, is productive. It sends out very positive signals to not only to itself, but other people around you. And I think it's a very healing experience finding flow. So in order to get to this point, I think you need to be, well, first of all, you need to be safe. Because if your brain and body is asking questions like, am I safe? You can't click into it. And then literally the blood will not go there in the same way to the beautiful, logical, creative centers of the brain. So I've got to be safe. I've probably got to be doing something I enjoy and something I'm good at and something that connects me to purpose. If you come across this Japanese term called ikagi, right? That's where the world needs this. I'm good at it. I like doing it. And maybe somebody's going to give me some money for it. So it's like that. I think that's where we do it. But it can be flow at work and it could be flow at home and there's flow available. It's not about the location as much as my relationship with what I'm doing.
Since you talk about masking, right?
Mm.
So if, let's say I'm working in a place where I don't feel I can be myself,
Yeah.
I can be authentic, and because of this lack of safety, let's say, I cannot be good at what I'm doing. But at the same time, I need the paycheck. In this case, is there anything that I can play with to put myself in the flow state, at least in the short term,
I think
until I find something else?
that's a very good question. So I think we can pretend to perform, and we can perform even though we don't want to be there. And that's quite a strain, because whilst I might be able to do the work, but if my values are against the type of work or the type of people I work with, then somewhere I will be drawing down from the bank of my energy and my resources, and there's no blood or bruising, but there'll be a harm to my energy in the long term. So commonly when people experience burnout, which is a chronic stress, they may well be overworked and have a bad boss and that kind of thing, but they may well also be masking the problems with themselves. They might be holding on to work because it's very important for the money or the sense of self-esteem, or because people have, they want to get out of poverty, or they need to, afford their food and their phone and their house and things like that. So it can happen that way. If you are in that situation, well, it's easy for me to say, well, why don't you change your job if that's possible? But for many people, that's not possible. So assuming you can't change your job, is there any way of reframing and almost gamifying your relationship with the work that you do? So I've worked in chicken processing factories, on, laboring on farms and stuff like that. And these are not interesting jobs. I'm not solving the world's problems, but I am serving a purpose. So I recall working on the factory lines. And somebody gave me this job of making cardboard boxes for the day. And that's it. That's all I did. I had to fill a room with cardboard boxes. And from my mind, it's like, okay, I'm going to change that into like, how many can I stack? How many can I do in the next 5 minutes? How many is that the rest of the day? How can I fill this room? I was finished by lunchtime, and he told me to go and sit on the toilet because he didn't have any other jobs for me to do. So listen, it's not always easy, but I think you can find social friendships through work, and that sense of community and structure and pay is still very good for us. So there are still some prizes at the table, and I'll try and focus on them. It might be like with the old Stephen Covey stuff. I might want to change, but if I can't influence where I work, I might as well control me and my actions for this day and make it the best day that I can with what I've got.
If you are enjoying the Core Impact podcast and feel inspired, let's connect on LinkedIn. You can search for my name, Omar El Mamlouk, or click on the link in the description. I would love to hear your thoughts or collaborate on projects around mental health and well-being at workplace, inclusive leadership, inner leadership, and the future of work. Let's co-create impact together. Think about it as a game, as I understood from you.
Yeah. The brain will find that more interesting. And I think that play is one of the ways in which, so gaming is a great example of how actually people say, oh, it's just television. Well, it's not actually. You get community. You have a shared purpose. You often working with others. You're communicating. It's, it's interesting stuff on the screen. So I think there's a lot in it. And there are ways of just altering it. Like, I don't think this is a long-term solution. If ultimately you are going home with some money in your hand, but bottle of alcohol in the other hand and crying until the next day, you will not last long doing that. You owe it to yourself and the people around you to try and think about what the other choices are or might be.
Tom, there's also something you just mentioned is burnout. And from the statistics, how many people are experiencing burnout that I see, it's very high percentage of people having burnout.
Yeah.
When I talk to many friends and sometimes talk to them about the podcasts, for example, and so they say, no, it's not me. My feeling, I'm not an expert there, but I feel like if you are not burnt out, who is burnt out when we see all these statistics? You know what I mean? So how can we know if someone close to us is experiencing burnout without them knowing?
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, some of the signs of significant burnout. So I think burnout, a lot of people say that burnout happens in stages. So your leaves might start to turn brown and then you fall off the tree and then you get put on the bonfire and then poof, there's that bit of chronic burnout at the end. Well, that's where I think you're often physically very exhausted. Like your body is almost dropping you to the ground, exhausted. Not just tired on a Friday. But your body sometimes takes over and just goes, no, I need to rescue you. I'm taking the controls. There's a sense of cynicism or anger about your work, particularly if you previously liked it. Your productivity is often at 0 or near 0. So I interviewed a guy who said, I sat there for 2 weeks watching the emails come in, unable to open them on a job that I could previously do. I just felt like I'd lost it. And that's another aspect of this as well, is that disconnection from work. Not just a professional coolness about work, where a doctor might say, oh, that's the, patient in bed 62. But a radical cutoff from your purpose and your personal values with work. So the classic example told by Christina Maslach is when she was sitting next to a person at dinner who previously run a community law firm. Somebody had come in to the community law firm, said, I can't afford to buy Christmas presents for my children. What am I going to do? And the lawyer said, I'd snapped at her and I said, go and steal the effing presents, then hire an effing lawyer. And she was like, that was the moment I knew that I'd completely disconnected from this, the sense of purpose in my personal values of work. So sometimes people can be at work and functioning just about, but there's no output, there's no joy, there's exhaustion, they're angry. And it's okay to observe that in people and say it. And I think that's quite brave. I think when somebody is in that space and they are permanently close to tears, or they're quite angry and cynical, they're exhausted, it's quite hard to call that out for somebody. But I think you serve people, particularly in a leader manager role, it is in your interest to do that and theirs. And actually, it's potentially in the UK, potentially unlawful to ignore it and keep pressing somebody, particularly if you know they're already unwell, because you could really harm them. Or there might be another side issue. So let's say you know somebody hasn't slept in 3 weeks and they're going to drive a lorry across to the depot on the other side of the country. No, not happening. You as a manager, you have to step in And you can see why in that case we call it mental health, but this is also a safety issue.
Mm, mm. It's very important what you said. I'm gonna try to summarize it, and then you tell me if, like, the main points, let's say, in summary. First of all, listen to your body to know that if you are in a burnout, so listen to your body keeps the score, and then you can feel how you like. The second one is how you feel about your work. What feelings do you have? Do you feel, especially if you liked your job in the beginning, and then you feel different thing, then it's also another sign. The other one is productivity, how much you feel you're productive at work, how much you're achieving. And especially the one is here, disconnection. Do you see that you are disconnecting from your purpose and your values? I think this is also, I never get, let's say, I never get bored of talking about purpose and values. I mean, I talked them in the podcast before. I've read books about them. I talked to many people about them, but it's very interesting how many people don't even think about purpose, and even me in the past, purpose and values, and how important in my life. How much do you think it's also important when you talk about mental health awareness to talk about purpose and value?
Yeah, for me, that's purpose and values are like my guiding stars, my North Star. And if I am not well, I'm often lost touch with my North Star. So mine are about mental health and understanding and caring for people and wanting to make the world a better place and doing a good professional job. They're some of mine. And if I find myself steering off course, losing direction, not very well, I've probably stopped doing those things or thinking about the things or caring about those things. So they are quite a good temperature check for how you are. Because when we become ill with mental health, it's not that there's something wrong with you. It's often because there's something wrong in your world, and it's showing up through your mood and your behaviors. So your body is a dashboard for your performance. If you were a car, for example, and something's not right, the temperature, something will flash on you. And that's the car functioning properly to tell you when things aren't right. But if you just kind of, tap the petrol goes and go, it doesn't matter, you will pay for that. If you neglect to put the oil in and the oil's like, don't worry about that, put a bit of tape over the over the light, you will pay for that later. So yeah, you are right. It's about understanding body behaviors and how they link to where I'm going in life. And if something's put me off direction, that's somebody else has grabbed my steering wheel, somebody's crashed into me in the car, and I need to course correct on that. Yeah.
Tom, do you like to share your story? How did you discover your own purpose?
So I was working for a marketing communications agency, and I was doing quite well, and I'd done well for years, actually. And I was rising up through the different ranks, the hierarchy of this organization, and I was working very hard and I was playing very hard. There was a lot of partying and quite a lot of drinking, and life seemed fun. And there came a period of time where I was heavily involved in a work project, a piece of crisis communications for a transport company that had a strike with some of its workers. And it was a very intense period of work, and a relationship went wrong at the same time. And I was also overworking. So I looked at my timesheets after this event that I'm going to describe, and I'd worked an extra 12 days and I hadn't taken 5 days of my holiday. So that's a sort of, my energy and resources were out of balance by about 17 days over the course of the year. And I would, reading as one of my, like speed reading is one of my superpowers. If I've read it, I'll remember it and we're good to go. But I would pick up a piece of paper, I'd read it, I'd put it down, and I couldn't tell you anything that was written on that piece of paper. I was also, it wasn't that I wasn't feeling any joy. I actually wasn't feeling, I'd stopped feeling anything. You know, work didn't delight me. The world didn't delight me. And yet I kept working until somebody said to me, I don't know where you are. You're not right. I need you to go and find out what's going on with you and then come back and talk to me. And eventually, so this is 20 years ago, and that was an unusual conversation to be having in a workplace. I think I might have rung a telephone helpline, but they suggested I find somebody to talk to. And eventually I spoke to the mother of my ex-girlfriend. This is all complex. This was how complex it was to try and find the right answer here. But so to the mother of my ex-girlfriend, who put me in touch with an old friend who was a counsellor, and that's where I had my first therapy session, where it was a rescue therapy session, as I didn't know where I was or what I was doing. And that was the beginning of my journey, learning about how I worked and how this all worked and mental health worked. I did go to the doctor and I described what I was feeling, and he literally wrote on a piece of paper, stress, anxiety, depression, 2 weeks. That was it. That's all I had. Well, obviously, I think we spoke about it a little bit, but that's all I had to take to work. And I really just wanted to build up my knowledge of this process and how it happened. And I think I even moved jobs a couple of times before I really started working on it. But that's my personal driver for this story. And there's been poor mental health, addiction, and other things in my family as well. So maybe I was trying to resolve. Maybe a psychotherapist would say I was trying to resolve some of those old, problems. But I have since worked with charities and organizations, hundreds of organizations, really, in terms of people interviewed and people I've trained and talks I've given. In this, really, I'm still thirsty for knowledge on why we feel like we feel, what we can do about it, and where that crosses over with work. So that's really what I do now, is I try and bring that to workplaces who say, we've got people here and they've experienced mental health, but we don't know what to do, and what's the plan and what's the strategy and how do we do that? So that's where it's that's where it came from, and that's where it is now.
Thank you for sharing that, Tom.
Thanks, man.
I appreciate that. Are you feeling stuck at work, disconnected from yourself or your team? If you are searching for more meaning in what you do, I am offering a free 30-minute call to help you clarify your purpose, your values, your vision, and your mission. Connect with me on LinkedIn and let's take the first step together. Okay, since you talked about safety before, how can a leader of a team frequently, like what's the question, for example, they can ask frequently to make sure that their team feels safe?
In terms of psychological safety,
yes,
I think there are a few. Here's a really lovely little exercise. How are you doing out of 10? So you can give me a number, right? You don't have to talk to me about all your personal complex feelings. You can say, I'm a 7, or I'm an 8, or I'm a 6. And the day you tell me you're a 4 or a 3, I know I need to find you later on, have a chat with you, ask what's going on. The day you say you're a 2 or a 1, I drop everything because I know that Omar needs me right now. So that's a really nice one out of 10. And if you tell me you're a 9 or 10, I go, great, Omar, I've got some extra work that needs doing today. You're on it. You want to go, that's great, I'm a 10, bring it on. No, it's but out of 10 is really good. And I first came across that as actually an out of 20 score in a cricketer's book called Graham Fox. And he'd written for Graham Fowler, Foxy Fowler. And he didn't know how to communicate his feelings to his family, and he didn't want to. So he came up with this score out of 20. So yeah, I think it's a really lovely way of doing it. Another one you could do with the team is to, I think actually prioritization and planning is a really good way of going through it. And I know that feels task based, but around that, you get to know what people's week looks like, what the team energy is like, who's got the biggest load at the moment, who's got a lower load, that kind of thing. And there's some research from Microsoft that said that task prioritization from your manager can increase satisfaction and productivity and things like that, like up to 80%. So it's quite significant. And I know from my research that managers that give out even small amounts of proactive support on well-being can help reduce the more significant stress, anxiety, depression felt in now by their team. Now, that's a big claim. But I ran this survey and 255 people said they'd experienced significant stress, anxiety, depression in the last year, whilst working for the company. 255. And where there was manager support on well-being, even a little bit, that number dropped from 255 to 55. So managers getting involved on this subject and asking questions like, what's the worst thing about your job at the moment? What's keeping you awake at night? What's the thing you hate about on Sunday evenings when you think about work? And trying to get people to share rather than cover up the difficult stuff. Because as a manager, you want to know, because that's getting in the way of team relationships. It's getting in the way of productivity. It might, left untouched, it might be something that gets somebody to the doctors, and going, well, my manager doesn't care. And the doctor, it took an employment lawyer near me in the UK 28 seconds to be signed off work and going to see his doctor. Said the doctor never even looked at me in the eye. Just started writing out the prescription as soon as I started speaking. Any kind of conversation that understands where people are at, prioritization, energy, that kind of thing, can be really helpful. Another one that's just quite interesting is coming up more and more is trying to work with the team to set your intention for the week. So not just the attention, which is the jobs and the task at hand. We've sort of said a bit about that. The intention is, it's more like your weekly North Star, right? Your weekly sort of, it's not necessarily a tangible goal. But mine is about, this week sat down, I've got a little bit of time this week. So mine is about creating like talks, ideas, events, marketing, that kind of thing. A few weeks ago, it was reach out, collaborate. Because I'd just come back from summer time off and I was feeling a bit distant from some of my clients and that kind of thing. Like, okay, right. How am I going to, start reignite the relationship and the communications? It might be go steady, something like that, which is about making sure you've got energy at the end of the week for an important family event. So it's quite a nice way of just setting your personal intention for the week.
Mm. It's here the personal intention as a team also, or you mean as a manager you communicate your intention with the team? Is it like a conversation? What is my intention and what is your intention, or it's about something that like the manager should communicate to the others?
Nice question. I think both are available to you. I think the manager can do it with the team, but I think it's also worth hearing what other people's personal intentions are, if that's safe. Look, if you work at Mondelez, Cadbury in the UK, and lots of other brands, but they have one of their manager training is the me, us, it. So you have, if you're going to go for a conversation or a one-to-one with your manager, first of all, you will be asked about you. How's it going? How's the kids? How's the holiday? How's the gardening? How's the health? How's the, you, me, first of all. And then us, which is about the team and the organization. And then it, which is about what have you got on this week? Tasks, last. And in doing that, you make sure people are kind of seen and heard from a personal point of view. Then you can think about the team and the organization, then nail down into the task. Because the task is the thing that you can do. I know you can do it because you've been doing it for the past 6 years or whatever. What people need to recognize is that salespeople are in sales because they're already good at sales. My job as their manager is to make sure that they're in the right position to be the good at sales person that they already are. And if there's been a problem in their life, relationship, money, health, house, big stuff of life, addiction, loneliness, other stuff like that, then they will be off center. They'll be off course. My job is to help them to course correct. Now, this is not to say, oh, come on, Omar, you just need to be focused on the work stuff. I can't believe you're bringing that life stuff to work. Okay, wrong approach. Right approach is like, oh, right, tell me more about that. Tell me what I can do to support you so that we can free up your mind to do the work again. Because if I've had a letter from the hospital, or I've got a gambling debt, or there's a problem with my kid, it's not that I won't be focused. I'm choosing not to be focused. I can't be focused on the work. So help me. We got to see the person, not the problem. And in that way, that support going to the person can help the person deal with that thing, because they still own it. And then they can work their way back to having the brain capacity to be focused on the work stuff. That's what I think.
So connect first.
It can be quite a long process.
With the
it can
person.
Be many conversations. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Connect first with the person before you talk about what you want to achieve.
That's where it is. Because when people's mental health starts to show up at work, there's probably something happening that's a problem as well. So it would be, we can talk about the signs of mental health all day, but by the time it really shows up at work, they are probably absent. There's a capability issue. There is a personality problem within the team. And it's things like that, which are our big flashing lights. So not the body, this is behaviors, or they're saying no to work that they should normally do. And that, by the time it comes out, is a problem. So the manager has this problem, but we've got to park the problem and go to the person first. If we just try and fix that problem, we will miss the root cause of it. And any engineer will tell you, you might be able to manage the problem in the short term, but the root cause will still be there and the problem will just happen again. This is why I think that managers people say, oh, they're just treating us like machines. And I think, I wish. I wish they would, because with our machine, we take really good care of them. We charge them up properly at night. We download the latest apps. We let them cool down after we finish using them. We use diagnostics. We've got specialist engineers. We love our machines. And if we treated our people the same way, yeah, we'd run more diagnostics. We'd fuel them properly. We'd let them rest and cool down, and we'd understand when they were productive and when they weren't.
Tom, you mentioned before asking confrontational questions about work, and if, for example, is there anything that makes you hate your job on Sunday or something like this? Some people, they say it's not the right approach to focus on the negative because they will always think about this. Like, we are priming them to think about the things that are not working well.
Yeah.
At the same time, we talked about authenticity, right? You cannot hide stuff. You have to be open and talk about everything. So where do you see the balance between these two?
Okay, it's nice, isn't it? These are big questions. So I think that if you completely ignore the difficult stuff, you are suppressing it and it does not go away. So I think we need to give space for that, but we also need to park it and move on. So I feel quite strongly that I was with my kid and she doesn't like this thing that's happening in the week. And I go, okay, just what we're going to do, this is 2 stages. Can you tell me everything that you hate about this thing? And just go into complete detail. Oh, I hate this. I don't want to do that. And then this happens. Brilliant. And, there was some tears and that's fine. I said, great. That's right. We've done that. We recognize that. Those are very real things. Now tell me all the good things about this thing. And then we can move people into that, out of victim space, into more empowered space of kind of, oh yes, some of this is in my control. And so I think we can do reframing so long as we've understood that it's difficult. Right. Good. It's difficult. I'm not denying that. We've listened to that, and then we let's try and look at all the different things that make that difficult, and we can try and work them, mitigate them, eliminate them. That's actually the principle of stress risk and mental health risk assessments in the workplace. We don't ignore the problems. We go, what are they? Where are they? When are they? Whose are they? And that's where I'm going to target interventions. And I also look at where teams are getting it right. What are you doing? Why are you the most successful team in this organization? What's happening in your space? And what can I learn from that? So that's what I think about that. I don't think that we need a toxic positivity, but I don't think we ought to be bringing, but I also don't think psychological safety is not about bringing my entire, complete, whole self to work, right? Because I can be an asshole. And I can be angry, and I can be tired, and I can not be bothered, and I can do all those human things. And I don't really think they're suitable for work. So it's not about that. There's a sweet spot where I need to give you time because you've got problems, and I'm trying to see the person. That's good. And I'll go, all right, thanks for telling me. That sounds really tough. What are we going to do about it? That's proper empathy. That, oh God, that sounds really, I can completely see where you're coming from there. Thanks for telling me. What next? What are we going to do about it? What do you need from me? So I think that it's about being more coach than counselor.
I like when you mentioned toxic positivity. And if someone is listening, doesn't know what toxic positivity is, I would like to give an example, and then you tell me what do you think about the story. I saw a video where she was dancing, partying, like she was like, the most active person in this party, and everyone was videoing her and so. And then after the party was over, after 12 hours, she committed the suicide. So I think this is for me toxic positivity when she showed everyone that she is positive, but there was lots of toxicity maybe in herself that nobody knew about. So many times we would like to show that, we are positive, although we have many negative emotions inside of us. Is it right? And what do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a very extreme kind of masking, and I'm really sad to hear that. I mean, some people don't want to share, and I do recognize that. I'll give you an example. Sometimes people in my sessions, the men in my sessions, are very jokey and Jack the lad, and they cannot take anything seriously. And I worry about that individual because they're not really in touch with, their true emotions on things. I think, life is not a joke if you are paying attention. But I think toxic positivity can be even a bit worse, because it can be where everybody pretends the world is, or their working world is a wonderful place, and we do everything, and you should be having a good time. And I think it's toxic because when people are not having a good time with life, because that's frankly normal, we will go through periods of suffering multiple times during our working career. And if we're told that we can't feel that, or we're not allowed to experience that, I think that can be damaging. And I think that in a world where, it's so wonderful here, everybody has such a wonderful time, and this workplace is just all sparkles and, and lights, it's very hard to speak up when there's a problem. And if you're not doing that, or not letting your people to do that, then you might be missing when people are sick, and you might be missing other near misses on safety and health. And that could be very dangerous and damaging, because you're not learning, you're not recognizing future problems at the early stages. And so toxicity is, it can be outright bullying, but it can be a bit more kind of quiet and layered and subtle in terms of the impact on organizations. And you also get this thing called performative leadership, particularly around mental health. You know of this in environmental, where we have things like greenwashing, where an organization looks like it's got sustainability principles, but hasn't. Or it's making claims about a recycled bit of packaging, but the actual product itself is horrendous for the environment. But that can happen with well-being as well. So people say, well-being is really important to us, and we've got this helpline, and I'm wearing my moustache for Movember, and it looks like you're doing a great job, but you're often and then at the same time you're rewarding people for overworking. You might have a performance management system that drives people for overtime, and you might have a management system that doesn't tolerate any kind of deviation from performance. And it also doesn't allow for any slack, because a lot of organizations and systems and teams and production lines and tube stations and everywhere are designed with the kind of minimum amount of resources. And when people are sick, absent, and whatever, for whatever reason, or there's no slack at all. And if that's the reality of the situation, and you are still going around saying, we're all well, look at our wonderful helpline, and that's a problem. And you're also, my final point on this is that you're often waiting for people to become sick before helping them. So the law asks us to look at preventing work-related stress in the workplace. But if all you've got are mental health first aiders, or helpline, then you're not doing that job preventative. The support is good, and that needs to be in there as well. But you're not doing the actual preventative stuff.
Tom, I like that comparison that you talk about greenwashing from sustainability, like an environment and everything, how companies claim that they are caring about the environment and so, but they don't really do anything. It's just about marketing. And there's another comparable or similar thing about mental health and well-being. And the term you mentioned is, did I get it right? Is it like productivity washing or something? What did he call the term?
Well, I don't think it's official term, but like wellwashing.
Wellwashing. Okay.
so everyone perhaps pretending that everything is going well, and people need to feel well, but the reality is different. And you do get that. I think it's a real shame, but it's sometimes that the management of an organization wants to do the right thing and says the right thing on LinkedIn and other media and the website, but then the local management has a different opinion, or your manager doesn't get this subject. And that's where problems occur, I think. And that's where people say, well, it's not my experience. This company is just full of liars, but it's often a much more complex story. Because even when an organization is under stress or has poor mental health, it's often not the entire organization. It's often located in a particular role or type of job or a type of worker or type of job. So I think we need to get a bit smarter when people say, oh, we're all stressed. I want people to go, that's interesting. Now let's find out where and why and what we're going to do about it. Rather than go, well, you're not stressed. You can't be stressed. What have you got to be stressed about? With such a wonderful company. Look how well we score on this, index. None of that. Just go, that's interesting. Let's look at why. Let's think of why. And if an individual comes at you and goes, I'm stressed, you're not going to get, well, you shouldn't be stressed, mate. You get a really good salary, or, you don't have many tasks. I don't know what the problem is. You go, okay, you're telling me you're stressed. Let's look into this. Tell me about it. Tell me more, because I might want to know. Because if Omar's getting stressed, then what about Tom, who does the same shift on the other day? What about, anybody, Maria, who is new to the job, and what can I learn from Tom and Omar? Because I want to keep Maria. There's so many positive things here.
Because in this example, Maria, maybe she doesn't talk at all. She doesn't express at all, but she has lots of things inside of her, right? Many people don't express.
That is true.
Yeah.
But you as a manager, your job, if you can learn from Tom and Omar before Maria arrives, you can try and eliminate some of the stressors of that job, so that when Maria arrives, she stands a better chance of being successful and productive. Because you've understood what the problems are, and you've already put in measures to stop that experience. That's the plan. Yeah, upstream stuff. I'm not going to wait for Maria to become sick and then wait for her to come back from 2 weeks absence and then send her to occupational health and then send her to a mental health first aid. At some point, I need to talk to Maria and go, Maria, what does good work look like for you? Let me tell you about the difficulties we understand in this role, and we'll work out what we're going to do about it. And Maria goes, okay, this feels like a place where I'm safe to speak up. Maybe I'll wait a week. But, if your manager gets this and is interested, I think it's so much more healthy and productive. It's not the job of a manager to wrap everybody up in cotton wool and protect them from all kinds of hard work. That's not it. We can expect a certain level of commitment and capability, and showing up and doing the job.
Mm.
Because good mental health includes hard work and deadlines and difficulties. But in a psychologically safe place, we will collaborate to solve that. In a more dangerous or toxic environment, I won't even know that these problems are occurring, and or I'll know, but I'm ignoring them, and that's when people start to sign off sick, or they leave the organization.
Mm.
Why did Maria leave? Because you never even asked her what was going on. She tried to talk to you, but you didn't want to know. Or she left because the job is awful, and you knew this because Tom and Omar left as well. You didn't do anything. So there are often signs.
Mm.
It's very expensive to leave this and not do anything.
Yeah.
Just nothing to do with the law, nothing to do with morals. To keep hiring people and then having time off sick and then losing them is a very expensive way to run a team.
Mm.
It would like, let's go back to sports. It would be like you've got the best player coming into your team. Because the other one left because they were injured, and you made them do the same thing in training and they got injured again. They never played. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're not learning from this, you're not making anything better. I think that's quite poor, because that's absolutely in your control to do the learning more.
While you are listening to the Core Impact podcast, please take a moment to pause and share with me. How do you feel? Are you enjoying the conversation, feeling inspired, or something else? I would love to know your feelings in the comments.
There's a question that I got one time. It's hard for me to answer. I know that it's beneficial, like in all aspects, for an organization to care about mental health and invest in it. The question is, it's a bit philosophical maybe, but is it anyway the responsibility of the organization to care about this? Because the purpose of the organization usually is to make profit and make service, etc.
Yeah,
it helps them, but is it their responsibility, or someone else should be responsible for the health of the population?
Yeah. So in answer to the philosophical question, your productivity is largely informed by people's wellness. If they're not well, they're not going to perform. It doesn't mean they have to be blissfully happy all the time, although there has been studies by Oxford University and others that link company performance and employee happiness. So thousands of people off Glassdoor, the recruitment, and review website, and there's significant correlation between company stock performance and individual employee happiness. So that's the other aspect here is that it's the same question. Getting it right morally is the same as getting it right legally, and the same as getting it right for business reasons. And there are roles for multiple people. The organization's role is to identify, manage, and mitigate work-related stress systemically. The manager's role is to guide and support, prioritize, and coach. And the individual's role is, I think, to give themselves the best chance of being well for work. So I think there are things we can do in terms of mental fitness. I can't force my people to do it. I can't go around, for example, saying that all safety must be due to the organization. That the organization has a reasonable amount of processes and training it needs to put in, but then at some point it's up to me. There are also roles for the leadership team to show up, to talk about it, to get involved, to let people know it's meaningful. And there are also roles for HR to guide and support and to have good HR processes, so that there's the structure and policy consistency around how we work with people.
Talking about the structure.
Sorry, you go. Yeah.
Just here, talking about the structure, do you think that in the future there will be different structure for companies? For example, either the HR will be really not like clearly there's a big separation between the operational HR and the people who are. It's happening now in some companies, but will be the norm that you have people who care about. You call it different terms. You could say inclusion manager, happy manager, feel good manager. There are so many other terms that people who really care about the mental health and well-being for employees, but not as a psychologist, but someone who is tracking this.
I think there'll still be roles for people. I don't think it's all possible for it to be automated. Though, as it happens, I have tested a couple of AI platforms, and it gives quite good advice on how to manage individuals' mental health. But I still think that humans need humans to accompany a process of proper line management and linking into organization systems of purpose and values and performance. So in the future, it will still be that there's a line, isn't there, by people who are into AI that will have so much time to do other things, and that's going to be collaborating with other humans. I'm not sure about that. I think that we will still use AI to just speed up jobs. And with regards to HR and HR processes, I don't see it taking over from a human understanding of how other humans work. And I think that employment rights and the law in this country, in the UK, will still back that up. So I don't know if I've completely answered your question, but I think we will see a greater tying in of this work to organization performance, operational well-being. And that means that well-being has got to stop being this green apple and yoga mat and, hugs type experience. I don't think it's that. I'm just saying that is a version of this. It's got to shift away from that and get a bit smarter about how it really works and delivers. Because the generations in the workplace who will be the workers, they are used to this conversation. If you are 20 years old now, let's say, and entering into the world of work or management, you will have had mental health and well-being as part of that conversation as you growing up, roughly, much more than if you were a 60-year-old now. And the subsequent people in your team and the hires will all expect you to be able to host this conversation properly. And they are seeking younger people aren't afraid of hard work, but I think they do need to understand that the support is needed and systems and structures around working well.
Tom, what is from your experience, you worked in big organizations and many organizations. What is the top 1, 2, 3 blind spots or misconceptions about mental health at workplace?
Okay, one, that it's a nice to have and does not have any effect on money. That's probably a big one. So you get somebody who's in operations or in finance going, why are we doing this? Why are we bothering with this? It's not, it's not making sausages or it's not making cars. Why are we bothering? It's not delivering. But it does, because without it, it's very problematic. The second blind spot is that you don't have to do it. It's just nice to have. You do need to do it. All organizations of more than 5 people in the UK need to have a written stress risk assessment. So it does appear in the laws in different ways in different countries. Australia has psychosocial risk assessment. Other models in different countries. I'm not going to go into each local law, but there's often a legal reason for doing it, and sometimes increasing punishment for ignoring it. And I think third, the misconception is that it's about people choosing to be lazy or not good at their job or something like that. So, and that it's just about somebody being a bit off at work. Whereas actually this is a whole person, and they've got loved ones who are concerned, and life is giving them a hard time. And the way the physiology of mental health works is that I'm not choosing to be angry or exhausted or disconnected from my job. That's my brain moving away from its performance zone into a stress response or potential burnout. So pull yourself together, mate, doesn't work for a brain that is injured.
Again, now another question about the future. What are the top 3 skills that professionals need to stay mentally strong in a fast changing world?
Oh, wow. We've covered a few, haven't we? We've covered things like setting my intention, and we've looked at like task prioritization and that kind of thing. Right. I'm going to give you some here that you may not be expecting.
Oh.
But I think these are good. Right. 1, we need to stop and eat properly. Right. If I am not stopping properly, it means I'm not giving my brain a chance to cool down and rest. Actually, this does not have to be a long period of time, but breaks and lunch breaks are very important. And in that lunch break or that break, if I'm just on my phone, smoke a couple of cigarettes, go to the toilet, go back, it's not enough. I need to kind of stop, and I need to properly nourish myself with food that is not going to spike my blood sugar, so that my energy is steady for the next bit of work. There you are. I don't know if the world is going to allow us to do it, Omar. I think we only get 5 minutes or a lunch break some days, don't we? But that's one thing. I think the other thing we need to do is get better at finishing work and stopping it and leaving it there. So our ability to close down work properly and move between work and non-work time is very significant, because otherwise it's already, isn't it? It's my work is in my personal phone. I'm in my home. My laptop is, always around. So I've got to be very clear about my boundaries. If I don't do that, it will eat into my rest time. My engine will still be running all night. But if I can close down my work, acknowledge what I have achieved that day, and then move into an evening where I'm doing refreshing, interesting things with other people, with my community, with my family, with my child, then I'm going to be much more restored for the next day. And this is not just like a whimsy, nice to have thing. I need to rest and refuel my engine properly. And that happens at work and it happens after work. And if I continued to be in the stress zone, even in a mild or moderate way, outside of the required performance time, then I will affect the way my brain works. I will wither my dendrites, which are the tree-like things that talk to each other between the neurons. I will take away from family time or child time, and I will not get the same type of enjoyment out of life. That's tricky, right? I was with a team, and when they came in, they looked broken and hunched, and they were often upset. And this is like even before the session had started, right? So you can't blame me. And this, I didn't know. I just thought, oh my God, you guys, they were working in homeless in London, and it was hard. It was a hard job. And then this one guy came in, and he was upright. He was bright-eyed. He was alert. He was ready to learn. He had a lot of stuff about him. I thought, my goodness, what are you doing? What are you doing that's different to the other people in this room? And he said, I work in homeless in London. I will never get to zero. So I'm not going to die trying. The best thing I can do is to work hard during the day and then leave work at work and then go home and live my life so I'm fresh again for the morning. That's the best thing I can do for me, the thing I can do for them. So that's another one. And the other two are managing sleep and managing money. But I reckon you need another expert or two on to cover those properly.
So number 1, stop and eat well. To take breaks and eat well. Number 2 is close down work properly. And number 3 is sleep and manage money well. When I talk about close down work, from your experience, is it better for our mental health or worse to work remotely, work from home?
There was some data before COVID that suggested that there were social and other benefits from 2 days remote working a week. But any more than that, and you started to lose out on that sense of team and community and benefit. But that was before COVID, right? We all have a lot of us have workstations at home. But it massively depends on the type of job you've got. Some people are unable to work from home, obviously. Shift work, factory work, frontline medical services, etc. But there are also organizations that have never had a workplace, and they are totally online, and they always have been. So what do we do with this data? Well, we know that there was a Chinese travel company called Ctrip, and it had an experiment where it chose half of its members of staff to work from home and see what happened to productivity. And for those people who worked at home, productivity went up. Then phase 2 of the experiment was that they could choose to work so those that were working from home could choose to go back to the workplace, and those that were left in the workplace, so basically everybody had the option to choose. And productivity went up again to something like 22% increase in productivity. So it yielded well from productivity point of view, but they also found that those people who were working from home were less likely to be promoted or considered for promotion. So the answer is, it depends from what you want from your working life. There's a big question. Is like I encourage people thinking about, is remote from good or not? Is like, what do we want? What do I want from my working life? Do I want to be around people? Do I want to go to do I want to change my scene? Do I want to, do this? So I think that's significant from an individual point of view. From an organizational point of view, I think it's about learning the sweet spot without a full-on mandatory edict. Because you will have some of your employees for whom this works really, really well. And you will have some of your employees for whom remote working does not work well. So why are you trying to get everybody to do exactly the same thing? And why don't you get a bit smarter on what your offer is in the workplace? Oh, we want people to collaborate. Yeah, fine. But they're coming into work and they're all sitting on Teams meetings. Is that the collaboration you want? Why would people come in? It's costing them a lot more in terms of time and money. So are you considering that? I mean, the other thing is, what about food? Offers of food at workplace? I like talking about food. And when organizations have good food offerings, it feels a lot more sociable and people really like it. So organizationally, I think you need to get a bit smarter about that question rather than one blanket mandatory policy because you've got a nice building that you're paying for and you just want to see bums on seats. That's the challenge. Unfortunately, often these decisions are made by people for whom it's no problem. They quite like going to work and having their office, and they've, got good general resources. So they've got the company car or whatever. So they don't have to worry about how much the bus costs or how long it takes to get in with the children's drop off, because they may well not be doing that children's drop off at school. So there are all sorts of reasons. If we looked at it a different way, if the question was not should we have remote or hybrid or not, and the question was what is going to get the best for us and our people, that I think you probably can have a bit of a wider space to explore. I do understand it. I do understand if you're running an office and half the seats are empty all the time, I would question this as well. But if you were actually looking at your bottom line and productivity and going, okay, what does a 4-day week look like? What do people want? What about, and what about we trial stuff in one department and see what happens to productivity? I'm not sure if I've really answered your question organizationally, but it's never just one thing. There isn't just a simple answer. I think that humans need community, and I think they learn from each other. Certainly, we used to start a lot of our relationships at work, right? Literally meet our husbands and wives there. But a lot of that is online now. Life is different. Yeah, I'm much more I'm more likely to go onto an app than the cafeteria to meet my partner these days.
Yeah. So your answer is depends. And I think there are some questions where it's not about answering with right or wrong or black and white, but it's just about exploring what options we have in the middle. So, I think for me,
right.
yeah, I think that, I don't want to say this is the right answer because I don't know what the right answer is, but I think this is how we can approach these things. Yeah.
I think
and I wanted to know your experience anyway. Yeah.
Well, in any other new product, you trial it and you test it and you see what's working and where we can make improvements. So this is quite a big thing for people to say, oh, we're only making people come back into work 2 days or 3 days. Yeah, but that's still significant for people who've been working at home really pretty productively for the past 2-3 years. And all of a sudden you get the new policy. People don't like that enforced change. So I think we need to use a bit of logic better and also understand how people's hearts beat a bit more of their lives.
Tom, do you think there is anything important about mental health at workplace we haven't talked about yet?
I think we've covered lots of ground. I think if I were to say anything as a last comment, is that this is a shared conversation. It is not just the workplace's responsibility to make this all happen. Equally, I think that individuals can do things to help themselves. But if we just understood that we're all actually rowing in the same direction on this, we want to be well, we want to be productive. But life doesn't quite work like that. So what we need to do is give ourselves the best chance of being well and productive, whilst also making contingency for when life gives us a kicking, because it will at some stage.
Thank you very much, Tom. I appreciate this conversation. I appreciate that you shared your story. We talked also about, let's say, important, kind of sometimes maybe a little bit philosophical, but very practical things that also from your experience about mental health, about our purpose, about our values, about how to make the work, let's say, more safe space. We talked about also psychological safety, and there were lots of stories and even sometimes a bit unexpected answers that makes me also think, for example, stop and eat well. The last one also, many things that kind of thought-provoking ideas to even explore more. So this conversation is kind of invitation to explore, even being in flow, knowing our purpose, and for example, wellwashing, our values, listening to our bodies, our emotions. There are so many things that they're all interconnected in a way, and I think it's very important to be aware of them and also to practice all of this in the end. And maybe for me, as a call to action that I took, is one important thing is to stop, as you said, stop and eat well. So if I take one thing, I would take this. Is there anything that you say, the final call to action you like people to take with them today? At least one thing.
I think getting to know yourself and do that reflection work on how you're working at the moment. Because when it comes to burnout, you might be bringing something to the party. It's not all about the workplace. This is partly about you and how you work. So go for a walk, go with a friend, start talking about just getting curious as to about what the way in which you work. Sometimes we have choices, sometimes we don't. But that act of just kind of, what am I doing here? What can I own? What can I change? And just go and play with some things. You can treat it quite lightly. And but if you're a manager or a leader in a workplace, don't treat this lightly. You got to get curious about where the stress spots are in your organization.
Thank you very much, Tom. So I don't have any more questions. If you like to share anything in the end, you can share now. And I wish you all the best.
Oh no! I thank you very much for having me. It's really good of you to be covering this subject for your audience, and there's lots in here. So yeah. Find me. People can find me on LinkedIn or wherever, and I often post videos and information about this kind of thing.
The link of your LinkedIn will be in the description for anyone who's interested. And again, it was a joy to have you, Tom. We stay in touch.
I like that, Omar. Thank you. Take care now.
Do you feel inspired by this conversation? If that's the case, please share that with me, write me a comment, and share it with a friend that you know will benefit from this podcast. Core Impact Podcast is on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other major platforms.